For those of you who don't know my background, before I ever was a pastor, I spent almost 20 years in the banking business or related fields. So I graduated LSU in 1990 in finance, had my first banking job, and just began my career. And over my years or so, I've had little kind of offshoots from those banking roles, and one of them actually worked for a title company that I had done business with. And they brought me in to do various things, but my primary role was marketing. So I was to go out and get new business from real estate agents, banks, mortgage companies, all kind of things like that. Now, in banking, I had to go get business, but my natural tendency isn't as a salesperson or marketing. That is not my nature. Customer service, yeah, and that's how I got most of my business in banking. Is not what I was good about convincing them to bring business to me. I was good about taking care of them. Well, now I'm in this marketing position with this title company, and so my job is to go get new business. And so because that wasn't my background, I was able to attend a school that was specifically for title company marketing representatives. And so I went there, and when I got there, there's about 25 others in my position that we were getting trained. And the guy who owned the company and was the main trainer, he said, "What is your primary product?" So we started answering, well, it's title services. You know, we handle the closing when somebody buys a house, or we refinance, or they're buying a piece of land, or they've got something to work out. So we kind of start going down the list. He's like, "Nope, you're wrong. Nope, you're wrong. Nope, you're wrong." We're like, "No, that's what we do." And he said, "That's not your primary product." He said, "Your primary product you're selling is peace of mind." And we were kind of like looking at a cow at a new gate. Huh? What? He said, "The reason is," he said, "real estate agents, mortgage companies, mortgage brokers, they're full commission. And the only way they make money is if that deal closes. You hold their livelihood in your hands. And they just want to know, is my livelihood okay?" He said, what they need to know, what they need to have is peace of mind. That's what you're selling them. Now, he said, you do it different ways through communication, things like that. But he said, realize they're laying awake at night because their mortgage is coming due, and they need that commission to happen from that sale or that transaction. They want peace of mind. And I was reminded about that this week as I was praying about what did the Lord want to share. And I thought how we all ultimately want peace of mind. There's people who pay a lot of money toward professionals, toward products, toward places in hopes to find peace, just rest in their mind. What I've discovered in my time on earth is that even the smallest things can disturb peace, and it leads to other negative consequences. I'll give you one example. 3:20 this morning. I wake up. I had fallen asleep on the couch last night just thinking about today. And as it goes, being a almost 57-year-old man, in the middle of the night, there's something I have to do. And I go into a little room and take care of it, and then I go back to bed. Well, I'm like, okay, I need to go do that, and then I will actually go to my bed and sleep where I should have been. And so just groggy, grab my reading glasses, my phone. I walk into this little room, and I drop my phone on the ceramic tile, and it starts blinking the lights that would call planes in from around the world. It was so bright. And it starts flashing. I had a decision to make right there. So I'm like, I'm awake at that point. There's no going back to sleep. And I'm sitting there looking at my phone. It will not stop. And I had a decision to make. And the Lord reminded me, he said, "What are you preaching on today?" I said, "Peace of mind." He said, "Why don't we apply it in this moment?" because normally I would have had a very different reaction. That's a very small thing in the our things of life. Some of us in this room are facing some very big things. And what we're going to discover today is that not only is peace possible, but it's actually supposed to be our natural state of mind as followers of Jesus. And it's a weapon of righteousness used to plunder the enemy. So today is about having peace of mind. And let me just be real clear, because some of you hope I go there. It's not about giving somebody a piece of your mind. That's not how that happens, okay? All right. And so what's interesting, and I want you to see this thought, is that peace does not have to depend on everything working right and going well. We can have supernatural peace even if things are not going well. Some even have no peace, even though everything around them seemingly is working right, but because they're just waiting for the next shoe to drop. Anybody have that experience? Everything's good, but you're just waiting. It's like you just know it's going to happen because of what you've experienced in this life. I've encountered a couple types of people. I've encountered some, they got the worst medical diagnosis possible, but you would never know it because they're so at peace knowing God has their life, has their future, and they're not even saying, I'm going to base my peace on whether he heals me or not. It almost like that doesn't even matter. They're just full of peace because God's got them. But I've also encountered people, see if you can relate to this, if the doctor even looks at them a little bit weird after reading the piece of paper, their mind goes, oh no, what's wrong? What's about to happen? What are you about to tell me? And we lose our peace before he even says anything. What's the difference? I want you to see this thought. The ones who have peace have come to understand that peace doesn't come from having no problems or everything working just right, but awareness of God's presence, trusting in his promises, practicing his principles, and understanding pain's purpose. And I want to have y'all leave that statement up just for a second. What's on the screen is almost like a formula. And if you've listened to previous sermons I've done over the years on peace, this would kind of be the practical way to have it. Kind of broken down, that summarizes sermons right there in one sentence of 4 parts. And that's important to know, but it's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to dive into a state of mind, and we're going to see peace as what Paul calls a weapon of righteousness. I told you last week that going into the second half of this year, God's going to show us weapons of righteousness. And those weapons may not look that way. I don't know if I would define peace as a weapon. The Word of God, yes. The power of the Spirit, yes. And on and on. I don't know if I would call peace kind of a result of it. But what we're going to see on the forefront, that peace is actually a weapon. If you go look in 2 Corinthians 6, Paul talks about their experience while they were out there spreading the gospel of Jesus Christ. And he says, and he talks about having, and he goes through this list of afflictions and hardships and distresses. He said there were beatings. There were days we went without food. We were starving. There were sleepless nights. There were storms. On and on and on. He talks about all this list of very difficult things that he faced that none of us would want to face. And it was interesting, he faced all those while serving God. Because I think it would have been easy of him going, what's up, God? I'm out here doing your work and I'm facing these hardships. Really, because I'm doing your work, this ought to be easy. Where's your favor? Why are things against me? Y'all ever had those questions? You ever have when life's not going the way it goes that you're kind of going, what's up, God? Where are you? What's the deal? I have those moments. Kind of that, why God? I'm your child. Why are you allowing this to happen to me? But Paul had a different perspective. He said, we were able to make it through those things. He says, in the power of God, by the weapons of righteousness for the right hand and the left. So we're going to learn about weapons that don't seem to be that way, but yet when we learn how to use them effectively, they have so much power to defeat and plunder the enemy that's against us. And peace is one of those weapons, and it's so effective because, I want you to see this thought, is that when you let the peace of Christ rule in your heart, as Colossians 3:15 says, you move with supernatural clarity and power that disables the enemy. Peace is such a powerful weapon. Yet, most people I know, even Christians, are riddled with uncertainty, with worry, with anger. And it shows up in being restless, not being able to sleep at night. Their mind's just so busy. Sometimes it can lead people to withdraw from relationships and even withdraw from life because of what they're experiencing. Maybe we just try to busy ourselves just to try to not to have something else fill the mind than what the challenge that we're facing is. So maybe it's overwork or something like that. Maybe we run to vices just to try to quiet the thoughts. And then all that leads to consequences. We can have health challenges from it. We can even have thoughts in our head of things like, nothing ever works out for me. Why does this always happen to me? No peace. See, because even if the devil can't cause a situation to actually go bad, what he can do is bombard our thoughts to the point we believe it's just going to go bad, even before it's happened. We start thinking of where is this going to go and almost predicting its worst outcome, but it ain't even what's happened yet. I remember one time I was sitting at a stoplight. In fact, it was while I was working for this real estate title company, heading north on South Sherwood Forest, almost to Coursey Boulevard at the light. And all of a sudden, I noticed my periphery went black. Now, I'm very aware of my eyes. I've had eyesight issues since junior high. I am aware of my eyes. I'm wearing contacts. I've had surgery. I know when something's off. And all of a sudden, it was getting dark. And I'm like, this is not good. So I turned around, went back to my office, and I went in. And then I started seeing white spots. And I went and met with our HR director. I said, something's wrong. And what I didn't realize, I was actually slurring my speech and getting words mixed up. And he's like, something's wrong. He said, you need to get home. Well, man, I started thinking the worst. I literally started thinking I got brain cancer. And I'm looking at my house, and there were like these little residue spots on my counter. I'm like, are my countertops leaching a chemical, and now it's getting in me, and now I have brain cancer. And I start thinking, man, I'm going to die early. Those little leeches, I found out later, were my eye solution that had dropped on the counter and left a little residue. But they were chemicals killing me. And when I went and saw a doctor, he said, you just got migraines, man. And come to find out, I was not going to sleep at night when I should. I was watching late night TV and playing video games and only getting about 5 hours of sleep at night. I just had migraines. He said, just get 8 hours of sleep, dude. And when I did, I was fine. But man, I'm telling you, I had it going bad. I was going to leave my wife a widow and my kids orphans. That's where the brain can go sometimes. There's a story about the disciples. One night, they're in a boat. Jesus is with them. Big old waves come up. Y'all know the story. And Jesus is asleep. And they go wake him up. And they're offended at Jesus. And they said, do you not care that we are perishing? The boat hadn't sank. They're just getting wet. It's a little crazy. But now they're dying. And Jesus wakes up, probably looked at them like, come on, man. Calm the waves and waters. But he asked this question. It's an interesting question. He said, why are you afraid? Why are you afraid? Now, their response probably be like mine. Of course we're afraid. Can't you see the waves? We have every logical reason. It makes total sense to be afraid in this moment. See, but Jesus' question was to help them understand there was a different option available to them. The natural response is freak out. Start thinking the worst before it even happens. But it's like Jesus said, no, you have two options in front of you. You can freak out, but there's another one you're probably not aware of. See, he wanted to show them there was an option called peace because he was there with them. What I've learned is I don't have to freak out in a moment, even though that seems to be the right response, is to freak out. Maybe that's you today. Maybe in your thoughts and internal dialogue, you're kind of seeing a tough situation you're going through, and it seems right for that moment, that challenge. It seems right that you're responding that way. Maybe it's a tough situation at work. Maybe it's a temptation you're feeling. Maybe it's a relationship struggle. Maybe you just want a different life. Maybe you're filled with regret. I don't know what it is, but those internals match that challenging thing. And your situation is real. And I think it's important for us to know our human nature is automatically to go toward the negative because, as the Bible says, we're born into sin. We're born into this there's a darkness that shadows our mind that when we see something bad, we instantly go to the negative and start thinking about the worst. It's important to know that's what's natural to us. That makes it easy to imagine how bad it can go. But I think it's just as it's important to know that about us, I think there's something even more important to know this morning. I want you to catch this. And if you're a follower of Jesus, is this: Jesus is in your boat with you. The waves may be big and bad. It may look like there's no hope. It's just darkness. It's craziness. But when you look over, Jesus is right there. And I'll ask a question. Is Jesus freaking out? We have oh my God moments that are bad. Does he have those? Or does he just look at us going, we're good. It's all good. I'm with you. And I think that's what makes his question, why are you so afraid, relevant for us right now. And I want you to see this thought, is that when we encounter something challenging, why do we often focus on the possible outcome that hasn't happened yet, instead of focusing on the presence and power of God? Why do we tend to kind of soak in a challenging situation instead of soaking in the presence of God? And I think that's why Jesus' question is so relevant. See, what Jesus wants to make sure we know, and that's what today is about, is of all the options we have, there's a much better one. And the way he says it is in John 14:27. He said, peace I leave you with you. My peace I give to you. Not as the world gives, do I give to you. The world would say, blast it all over social media, how bad it's going for you, so that others kind of join the pity party parade and we all freak out together. But Jesus is going, I got something better for you. This thing called peace. And he says, do not let your heart be troubled. Oh, there's a choice. I've got to say so in this. And that's what Jesus is saying. Yeah, you have a choice of what you let happen. Paul adds to what Jesus said in Philippians 4:7. He says, and this peace that Jesus gives you, he said, calls it the peace of God, which surpasses all comprehension. It makes no sense. It will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. How beautiful is that? In the Hebrew, there's an amazing word that we often translate as peace. It's the Hebrew word shalom. We've probably all heard it means peace. Peace is a big part of it, but it means so much more. I want you to hear what it means. It means wholeness. It means harmony. It means restoration. It means nothing missing, nothing broken. Any of you remember the beautiful song, All is Well? Or It Is Well, I mean. It is well. Y'all know the story about when that song was written? There was a man whose family was coming over on a ship, I think either to America or from America. Storm happened and they died, his wife and children. In that moment, he had a choice. Lost everything. And he writes this song, It is well. It is well with my soul. Wow, what a place to be. What did he see? Jesus. Jesus with him. Jesus has him. And that's what shalom means. It's this place of peace inside of us, even if around us is no peace. That word shalom was actually used after a king and his army would go defeat and plunder the enemy. And when they came back to their people who were on the risk of being invaded, the king would come back and go, shalom. And what it did is signaled that the enemy had defeated and now they were safe. Their land was secure. There was no longer a threat that remained. And it was much more than just the absence of conflict. It meant complete victory and everything good that followed. So let's bring that thought into our right now moment. And I want you to see this, is that Jesus has conquered sin, death, and the powers of darkness, and now offers you shalom, complete rest, wholeness, and safety. And while we may know this kind of conceptually, the question I have for you is that what is shalom ruling your heart and your mind right now? Now, I want to be clear, is peace isn't denying the reality. When we get that tough report or we see something challenging, that we go, that's not real. No, it's real. I could have looked at my phone this morning blinking going, no, that's not real. That thing was blinding me. It was real. But I want you to see there's three statements I'm going to have back to back. The first one is, peace is the evidence that you've allowed Jesus to reign over your heart and mind, and that you've shut off the access to the enemy's influence over your life. The second thought is that an absence of God's peace reveals the presence of a competing influence domineering your perspective. And the third thought is, biblical peace is not fragile. It's not temporary, and it's not elusive. And while it is a state of rest, it does take intentional effort to achieve it. Why? Because we're bombarded with noise. We're bombarded with trouble around us, and it's hard to quiet down. Have you as a parent ever said this, whether out loud or internal, can I just get a little peace? Right? To kind of bring the point home, I want you to check out this little video real quick.
Inner peace. Inner peace. Inner peace. Would whoever is making that flapping sound quiet down?
That's what we think. I need peace. Let me sit cross-legged, get some candles in a quiet room, and peace comes. That tends to make a noise, because a lot worse, because the brain's just going. That's a funny thing, but there's effort that it takes to get there. Remember, Jesus said, do not let your minds be troubled. There's even a different way of saying it that Paul recorded in Colossians 3:2. He says, set your mind on things above. You do it. You set your mind on things above, not on the things that are on the earth. Not that situation you're facing. It's real, but that's not what you set your mind on. You still have to do something about it, but it's not what you set your mind on. You set your mind on a higher place and on a higher person. Romans 8:6 says this, for the mind set on the flesh is death, but the mind set on the spirit is life and peace. There's one power God gave us as humans. It was to be able to control our behavior and control our thoughts. He gave us that ability. Even though we're bombarded, we can choose. And we're the only ones who can make ourselves do or think anything. We're the only ones. But it's going to be a battle, isn't it? Because those thoughts can rage, and man, it is a fight. It's interesting, Joyce Myers and others have said it, but she actually wrote a book called Battlefield of the Mind. Because at times it is absolutely going to be a battle. And remember, our nature is to focus on the negative. But we don't have to. As long as we understand the intentional fight that it's going to take, we can find peace. A few chapters after, where Paul talks about the weapons of righteousness, he expands on them. He says in 2 Corinthians 10, beginning in verse 4. He says, for the weapons of our warfare, that's our weapons of righteousness, are not of the flesh, but are divinely powerful for the destruction of fortresses. Now, that word fortresses, while it in an earthly sense means fort, what it means in a spiritual sense is this: it's wrong beliefs that lead to wrong conclusions. So he said, there's battles in your mind, but there's weapons that can defeat that wrong thought that's leading you to think wrongly about where it goes. He goes on to verse 5. We are destroying speculations and every lofty thing raised up against the knowledge of God. And we are taking captive. That's a violent, intentional word. We're taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. Here's how I translate for myself to the obedience of Christ. What would Jesus do with that thought? Would he allow that negative, defeating, it's just going to go bad thought to remain? Would Jesus do that? I don't think he ever did. I think he said, no, you don't belong here. You're trying to steal my peace, but I'm not going to let you. And he did what it took to get that thought out of his head. We're going to have to take it captive. There's a great verse in Isaiah 26:3, but I want to read verse 2 first. It says, "Open the gates that the righteous nation that keeps faith may enter." What's that keeps faith? It's people who see God, who see his promises, who have their eyes set on him and what he says, not what that thing or that event or that difficult situation is saying. And then he goes on to say in verse 3, so powerful. He said, "You keep him in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on you because he trusts in you." He whose mind is stayed. Do not let your mind be troubled. Set your mind on things above. Our mind is stayed on God. And it's interesting that word stayed means rely upon, but it also is a war term. It means to lay siege. It means that mind recognizes that's a wrong enemy thought that's coming to invade and destroy my life, and I'm not okay with it. It's trying to go after me. With the power of God, I'm going after it. I am not going to allow it to remain in me. And then it also means to be in a state of physical refreshment with the necessities for renewal of strength. That is a powerful word and a powerful thought. And then verse 4 says this, "Trust in the Lord forever, for the Lord God is an everlasting rock." I've heard this said before, is that what you feed grows. And the more you ponder on something in your brain, the more it grows influence over your thoughts and your behavior. We can feed the negative, or we can feed the positive. So let me ask you, which one are you feeding more? Are you feeding the lion known as the King of Judah? His name is Jesus. Are you feeding that lion? Or are you feeding the one that looks like a lion who's prowling around looking for somebody to devour? Which one are you feeding? The one you feed more is the one that's going to win. I want you to hear what I'm about to say. Is that when you focus, when you ponder on the love and the goodness of Jesus, and you make being in his presence a priority, and you let those difficult things actually push you closer to Jesus, what it does, it allows him to come in and invade you and push out every competing thought there. What happens sometimes is we see a negative situation and it causes us to run from God, especially when we're disappointed in God, especially when we expected God to do one thing, but he did something different. We wanted him to stop something bad, but he didn't. We kind of get disappointed and we can run from God. When God says, no, that's the wrong response, run to me because I'm your answer. So I want you to catch this thought, and this one's huge. Your situation does not change the fact that God is God. It does not change the fact that he is with you without fail. And it does not change the fact that he's full of compassion and power, compassionate power, working that situation out for your good. As you look at that statement and you ponder on it and you catch it, and when you settle your mind on that truth, then it becomes an effective weapon of righteousness that results in peace. Because God's got it. And we enter this realm of the kingdom, this kingdom of peace. And I think that goes along with what Jesus said. He said in the Lord's Prayer, let your kingdom come, let your will be done. What we're saying is, kingdom of God, come and invade my life. I heard one pastor say that prayer is a declaration, kingdom come, will be done. And some of us in our moments right now, we need to speak to that thing and say, kingdom come. And that may even be over our minds. We need to talk to ourselves and say, brain, you need to shut up. Kingdom come and invade my thinking. Come on, why don't we all say it out loud? Kingdom come. Come on, say it again. Kingdom come. Have you had enough of those restless thoughts? It's time for them to be made right and for you to enter into that realm of peace. What do we set our minds on? Philippians 4, 8 through 9. Finally, brethren, whatever is true. We talked about that last week, how the enemy he comes at us with lies. Whatever is honorable, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is good repute, reputation, if there's anything excellent and anything worthy of praise, dwell on these things. He doesn't say dwell on the challenge. He says dwell on these good things. Verse 9, the things you have learned and received and heard and seen in me, practice these things, and the God of peace will be with you. And he says a verse, amazing verse you probably know well in verse 13. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. That situation looks like it's going to overwhelm and harm, separate your family. Just be devastating. Nope. You're wondering, how am I ever going to make it through this? You can. Why? Because Jesus is in your boat and he's looking at you going, I'm good, you're good, because I'm with you and I got you. And you can do all things through me because I'm giving you supernatural strength that you didn't have in yourself. Today, are you dealing with a challenge that's troubling your mind? It doesn't have to be something giant. It can be dropping a phone at 3 a.m. But is there something today that's just causing a battle in your mind? Cause you to be restless, maybe fearful, maybe angry, maybe disappointed. Let's plunder the enemy today. So I want you just to close your eyes for a moment. Some of you are facing a troubling situation. You may even have caused it. Or maybe it's caused you to even run away from God. Some of you are dealing with a relationship issue and you're still holding on to what they did to you. They did something harmful to you. And that just kind of lives in your brain. Maybe your lack of peace is because you know you're doing something you shouldn't supposed to. You know God's not happy about it. And now you're concerned about a separation from God and stealing your peace. I don't know what your issue is today, what you're facing. But I want you to know today, what God's telling you is there's a better option for you than what's troubling you. And even if the situation doesn't change right away, peace is an option for you to choose because Jesus is with you. Jesus is there for you. And what I want to encourage you today is leave the turmoil, the restlessness, the concern behind. Some of you, before you leave today, you need to come to the altar and just leave it right here. You just need to drop it and say, God, it's not my issue, it's yours. My first and main concern is you. And I'm going to let you consume my thoughts. I'm going to pray for you, and I'm going to pray 2 verses over you right now. And if you're walking through something that just you feel like it's just robbed you of your peace, I just want you to put your hands out just to receive peace that God's going to give you right now, even as he gives you the answer. Father, I'm asking that you right now give the peace that Jesus talked about. That the peace is not like the world gives, but like you give. That's supernatural. It's overwhelming. A peace so great, that's what consumes our thinking, not that negative. And church, I declare over you, Romans 16:20, that the God of peace will soon crush Satan under your feet, and that the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ be with you. And I declare over you 2 Thessalonians 3:16, now may the Lord of peace himself continually grant you peace in every circumstance. The Lord be with you all. Lord, I pray right now that there's an awareness of your presence with them in this moment, that they're not alone, and that they're going to be okay. I thank you for what you've done today, oh God. Now, while your heads are bowed and eyes stay closed, and I'm not going to ask for a response, but I have a question that may pertain to you. Is that you have never made that decision to truly follow Jesus. You may not know what it really means to be forgiven of your sin and brought into the family of God. But you're going, I don't want to leave today till I know I'm right with God, that everything's good. My eternity's secure, and I know he's with me in every moment. And if that's you today, I want to encourage you to do a couple things. One is, at the end of service, we're going to have our prayer team up front. You would just come and talk to them about how to find that relationship with Jesus. Or come find me. I'll be in the room. And just come say, hey, I want to be a follower of Jesus. How do I do that? And I'll show you how. But don't leave today without knowing that for sure.